Welcome back, guys. In our last video, I hope you were able to watch it. We talked about the eyewitnesses of the resurrection of Jesus, these people who actually saw the risen Christ. Well, the question that we have raised then is, did these people just hallucinate? Is it possible that they didn't really see the risen Christ, but they thought maybe they were going to? So I just want to offer some ideas why this is not a tenable argument, that it was just hallucinations, okay? Were they really just making this up? Were they really just having hallucinations? So is this a possibility? I'm going to give you a few points here that I think will help us to understand that couldn't have been the case. So the first one is that hallucinations are abnormal. This is not something that we would expect to see, right? Hallucinations are not group events. It's not like, hey, we're all going to get together and we're going to have us a good old hallucination. It just doesn't work that way. Hallucinations happen to select people for certain reasons. As a matter of fact, the National Institute of Health gave conditions that can cause hallucinations. And here's a list they gave. Psychosis, such as schizophrenia, delirium, dementia, seizures, migraines, sleep disturbances, drugs, and tumors. So when you look at that list, you say, this is not normal. This is not something that we would be expecting, especially the 500 people at one time that Paul talked about that actually saw the risen Christ. It is not normal to hallucinate. People that hallucinate, when they do, there's a problem. Maybe they're on medication, or maybe they have some other kind of problem, psychiatric problem or something. So this is not normal. So we couldn't expect all these people then to have hallucination, especially to have the same hallucination, which really brings us to our next one, which is that hallucinations are individual events. People don't have hallucinations together. They're like a dream. You don't dream about someone, like say I were to dream and my wife would be in the dream, and the next day I'd say, hey, do you remember that dream last night? And she'd be like, yeah, when we're talking about the dream. No, you have those alone, right? Hallucinations don't happen in groups. Hallucinations are individual things, yet we have the 12 or the 11 disciples at that time. We have the apostles that are mentioned there. We have the 2 men on the road to Emmaus. We have the 500 people at one time. We have Paul. We have all these people, and they're seeing the risen Jesus, and they're having the same hallucination. But so obviously it's not a hallucination because they are individual events. All these people saying the same things. I think we need to give them credit, at least like we would any other historical event, that these people saw something, right? They saw the risen Christ. Another reason that we don't believe that these are hallucinations is that each situation was actually a little bit different. Most of the situations were different. Now, obviously, hallucinations are going to be different, but they saw the same risen Christ, right? But it was a little bit of a different situation each time on the road to Emmaus. However, the 500 people saw him. Paul saw him as, he spoke to him from heaven. Mary saw him there at the tomb. So they were a little bit different. It was the same Jesus, but they were all a little bit different. Another reason is that they happened at different times. If mass hallucinations were responsible for these Jesus sightings, how do we account for the different times that they happen? They're mass hallucinating together at different times. That just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Why can't we at least just say that these people were telling us what they saw, right? They happened at different times. It was over at the tomb. It was on the road to Emmaus. It was coming, out of the sky there and outside the road to Damascus. It happened at different times. And the next reason that we believe that these were not hallucinations is because no one expected Jesus to rise. It's not like everyone was sitting around just waiting for him to rise. Some people think, well, his followers just wanted it to happen so badly they just saw it like a mirage. But we know that wasn't the case. Nobody expected it, not even his closest disciples. And next, we have the fact that disbelievers became believers. Think about Jesus' brother, James. He didn't believe. And then he came to be a believer when he saw the risen Christ. And Paul himself, he had no reason to believe. He did not want it to be true. But he changed his mind when he saw the risen Christ. He was fighting against the Christians. He was dragging them off to prison. He had no reason to believe this until he saw the risen Christ, and that totally changed his mind, and it actually transformed his whole life. And the next reason we know these are not hallucinations is because you can't touch a hallucination, right? I've never experienced a hallucination, but I assume that if I did, I wouldn't be able to reach out and touch it. But people did touch Jesus. I want to look at a passage now where people were able to actually touch Jesus, which they couldn't have done if they were hallucination. Luke chapter 24, verse 36. Now, as I said these things, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them and said to them, "Peace be to you." But they were terrified and frightened and supposed they had seen a spirit. And he said to them, "Why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have." And so he was asking them, reach out and touch me. A spirit is not like this. They could touch him. Matthew chapter 28, verse 9. As he went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them, saying, "Rejoice." So they came and held him by the feet and worshiped him. How do you touch a hallucination? And then one more here in John chapter 20, verse 27. He said to Thomas, "Reach your finger here and look at my hands, and reach your hand here and put it into my side. Do not be unbelieving, but believing." And Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." So this sure convinced Thomas, right? Thomas knew he was not seeing a hallucination here. He knew that he was really seeing Jesus. I mean, how do you grab something that isn't there? They could grab him, they could touch him. He was real. We have one more question I want to look at now that will help us understand these were not hallucinations. And here it is. What about the empty tomb? If this was just a hallucination, where was Jesus' body? I mean, nobody brought that up, right? How do you explain a grave in grave clothes sans body? There's no body there. Where is he? Oh, well, they're just hallucinating because I think they saw him. Why can't you just accept the fact that Jesus actually rose? There's another appearance of Jesus that I want to look at, and this is in John chapter 29. Chapter 21, verse 9. Jesus comes and his disciples are fishing. And then as soon as they had come to land, they saw a fire of coals there and the fish laid on it and bread. And Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish which you have just caught." Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land full of large fish, 153. And although there were so many, the net was not broken. Jesus said to them, "Come and eat breakfast." Yet none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" knowing it was the Lord. Jesus then came in, took the bread and gave it to them, and likewise the fish. This is now the third time Jesus showed himself to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. So here's my question. How does a hallucination cook breakfast? I mean, how is he going to cook this bread and this fish for the disciples if he's nothing more than a hallucination? But I also find it interesting to point out how John said in that passage, look, this is the third time that Jesus has appeared to us. Why? I don't know, but I wonder if maybe it was because in the law, you had to have 3 witnesses to prove that something was true. I wonder if that's why John pointed out, look, we saw him 3 times. This wasn't a weird one-time event. Like, man, I don't know. Did that really happen? Did you see that? I don't know. Maybe we saw it wrong, but he just kept appearing to them. I think we have plenty of evidence that Jesus rose from the dead. There were plenty of eyewitnesses, and this could not have been a hallucination. So I hope that helps you out a little bit as we're looking at, did Jesus really rise from the dead? God bless you guys. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.